I saw that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is like making some waves and has passed some like great measures so far. They are culture war that help nobody. One of them is banning CRT in schools, which great, you banned a thing that isn't taught in elementary school already, so that one does nothing. And the other one was to ban the word Latinx. So it's kind of like the right has dominated culture war, outrage porn. Fine, you get that. That's your little treat, your toy. You can go play with that. But in terms of like actually doing things for voters or getting anything for the citizens who brought you to power, it's nothing. It's empty. It's a vessel, right? Like what good is that going to do for the average person if you don't teach a thing that wasn't taught?
People in Arkansas just can't stop saying Latinx. Good thing.
I guess so.
I have this Ben Shapiro clip. Want to watch this?
Yeah.
This is gonna be good.
I was being afraid there. I'm glad that at least some of these M&Ms will have nuts to represent the transgender community. So you have to ensure that some of the M&Ms are actual trans women. We wouldn't want these to be cisgender M&Ms.
He's so proud of that joke.
Some of the female M&Ms will in fact have nuts. The move is the latest in a series of marketing moves M&Ms has made to promote.
Did you want to say something, Scarlett?
Previous announcements involved the introduction of the purple.
If the purple M&M is a trans woman because it has a nut, it's a nut M&M. Doesn't that mean like the red one's a trans man because it doesn't have a nut?
One could make that
by his logic, yes.
There's no consistency to Ben Shapiro.
yeah.
Purple female M&M who represents body positivity and self-acceptance. Well, I'm sure M&M would love people to accept body positivity because you eat enough of them and you get fat. That is what they are. They are a candy. Early in 2022, Mars announced it would alter its mascots to reflect the more dynamic, progressive world we live in, saying the refreshed M&M's brand will include a more modern take on the looks of our beloved characters. So that's exciting. Mars Wrigley North America Chief Marketing Officer Gabrielle Wesley explained the move. Quote, women all over the world are flipping how they define success and happiness while challenging the status quo. So we are thrilled to be able to recognize and celebrate them. And who better to help us on that mission than our own powerhouse spokes candies, green, brown, and purple. Oh, so moving. So incredible. So unbelievably stupid.
Yeah, right.
Women, do you feel represented now because of the green, purple, and brown M&Ms on the M&M package that you're guzzling down lonely in your apartment with your wine and your cat?
What?
How's that going for you?
He gets real sexist here, like boomer sexist.
Yeah, like he's like so giddy about his own commentary that he thinks he's hilarious, and the jokes here he's making are like, I don't know, sexist jokes from like 80 years ago.
Yeah, they're too outdated for like my grandfather.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm mostly just happy because if it's an all-female M&M, I assume that it costs 77 cents on the dollar of what the regular M&Ms would cost, right? That's how this works. Also, do not ask the female M&Ms for directions.
Oh, okay, man.
It's just not going to go particularly well.
You wouldn't be serious.
Like, how?
23. Like,
what?
1980s stand-up style sexism, you know?
Who even? We all have phones with maps. Like, who's asking for directions? That's so stupid.
Corporate America, man, filled with morons. But until there are alternatives, this is what we're going to have to suffer with. So I suppose we're going to have to launch Jeremy's Candy or something.
What are we suffering with? They eat the fucking candy or don't. Like, only you want to talk about the M&M's marketing campaign. Like, yo, when you think like, bro, you're a fucking loser. Like, what is like?
Yeah.
What?
By the way, has Tucker Carlson reacted to this? Because do you remember when they redesigned the M&M and made them less sexy in 2022? Tucker Carlson was very mad.
He was super.
He did object.
I'm not a loser, so I wasn't anywhere levying commentary about the M&Ms and what they decide. What they decide to do with their fucking cartoon M&Ms, like, cause nigga really. But I will say that the green and the brown M&Ms were always some bad bitches, and I didn't appreciate trying to take any of their drip. Like, I was like, oh, leave my girls. Like, I don't understand who asked for this. Like, why my bitches can't have their heels? They've been popping for decades. Why don't get on their agenda? But I understand that they are M&Ms. They are cartoon candy. And it doesn't matter what is done with them.
Exactly. That's the thing. These are just corporations that are trying to do whatever they think is going to be popular in the moment. And like not to Ben Shapiro's point, but just to like, this is what corporations do, right? But this is not like to get so outraged over a marketing campaign for M&Ms. Like, it's just, how isn't there anything else going on? Like, how can anyone be so invested in this? And it was him. I think Matt Walsh, I think, also did a video. Like, this is the
Tucker
stuff
Carlson
they're
did a whole
focused on.
special about it.
Yeah, and also this week, don't forget the controversy surrounding the new Batman comics, where Joker was pregnant. And this to them was very, very offensive because, of course, men can't get pregnant. Now, what's funny is I think it was Joe Concha. He was on Fox News explaining this. He's like, well, it's not like Joker is trans, so they're not pushing that, but it's still woke because the Joker has become the wokester because he's pregnant. Now, the way he actually admits the way that the Joker got pregnant was because pregnancy is woke, but Joker got pregnant because of a curse. So it's not like the character is even trying to promote like LGBTQ plus people. He just like got pregnant because he was cursed by somebody else with special powers. And they were very mad about that. It's just,
as you do.
I love the world we're living in where this is American politics and this is what they focus on. It's great. Yeah.
And there's a perfectly reasonable explanation.
Wow.
Oh, and the best part is that as they were talking about this image was on the side the whole time, basically. They kept going between this and another image, and it was great, just like somebody's head up Joker's crotch. And they were talking about how offensive it was.
Oh my God.
It was wonderful. I have a video coming out on Saturday. We talked about this on my Twitch stream. I love all the things that conservatives keep getting frustrated about. I don't know if you all followed the controversy surrounding big government coming to take your gas stoves, but they are convinced that somebody's going to show up at your door and they're going to take that fucking stove right out of your house. It's really great. All of this stemmed from one individual following the release of a study showing that they kind of increased the risk of asthma in children by like 13%. So it's really substantial, right? And so the Consumer Protection Agency announced that it was going to look into this or something like that, or even consider banning it. It made a relatively banal statement, but they took that as, oh, well, if you have a gas stove now, you're breaking the law. And this is the wokeness.
Or they're going to come and take
your
gas stove, which they wouldn't do that. It would be grandfathered in. Right. It would be like, they're not going to sell new gas stoves, if anything at all. I'd be surprised if they even do anything about this. But like, out of curiosity, how many of you have gas stoves versus like electric? Like, let's do gas first.
Stove.
I have gas. I rent though. It's not like I installed it. I don't want to get canceled over this.
I've only ever had an electric stove, and it's been fine. I can boil water. I can make food. That's not a problem.
The gas
some people claim
fire or no? I don't cooking, so I have the other one then. Listen, I'm not convinced that it's not a mistake to let Republicans distract us with this nonsense, because that's what it is. Like, right? It's always so stupid and comically stupid, and like we respond and we're like, oh my God, that's so fucking stupid. But it's like, are we not just helping these niggas like share this, propagandize this, make this like larger and louder? Because who would have known this foolishness? Because that's ultimately what it is. They want to distract from some other substantive conversation, and so the minute before you could even really get a peek on that, and then it's now okay. Now we talking about joke, gas stove. I said something, and now it's gonna be that.
They don't need our help because they set the narratives. Like they have the platforms, because they have so many billions of dollars behind them. We're talking even like, you know, like small YouTube shows or ones that would appear to be small. We're talking about billionaire backers behind them, which is why we all know about them. So they're the ones that set the agenda, and then I know there's been studies on this. There's data showcasing this, where whatever like Fox News is covering, then that ends up being what MSNBC and CNN end up covering. So they already set these, like we're already in the discussion.
But that's kind of my point, right? They're allowed, yes, they set the discussion, but us responding to it and continue it, and that makes it become the discourse because we all jump on it, right? Like, do we hear about, like, of course, Fox News and all these people, and they tune into that and they're gonna say all their stupidness and da-da-da. But for the purpose of putting it onto the air, as much as they're peddling it amongst themselves and they're all eager, what they really want is for us to all be plugged into what is their discussion. And you don't really hear, there are people who don't hear about this shit until we bring it to them. You see what I'm saying? Like, if we don't have certain conversations, we help bring their things out of, you know, and I obviously, I don't mean like us. We don't start it, right? Obviously, it already happened at MSNBC. These different.
Oh yeah, I mean,
all fall in line.
If I had power over MSNBC and CNN, I would not be impacted by Fox News at all. I would like just completely ignore whatever they're doing, whatever they're talking about, and set your own agenda for those networks. And yeah, I agree with you on that. On that, like that's what ends up happening.
My point with this, though, is I think that their biggest complaint is that these corporations have, quote, gone woke, and now they're just trying to appeal to demographics to score points or whatever that is. That's kind of a nightmare of their own design, because like no one would be talking about this on either side if they weren't actually getting outraged about it. It's kind of like people would just be like, have you ever bought candy based on the packaging since you were 9? Like, have you ever walked by and like, oh, the logo looks good on this one, time for this bar? Like, no one does that. Like, well, no adult does that. Children do that, but otherwise, none of us are buying candy based on how performative, the rainbow wash is on the logo or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why also, I mean, that M&M conversation isn't really getting traction. I mean, except to laugh at it, as opposed to, like, to your point, as opposed to the stove conversation, which actually is getting traction because people like their gas stoves for whatever reason. Like, so it bothers them, the idea that they can't have it.
Before I forget this, I do want to say I saw that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is like making some waves and has passed some like great measures so far. They are culture war bullshit that help nobody. One of them is banning CRT in schools, which great, you banned a thing that isn't taught in elementary school already, so that one does nothing. And the other one was to ban the word Latinx. So it's kind of like the right has dominated culture war outrage porn. Fine, you get that. That's your little treat, your toy. You can go play with that. But in terms of like actually doing things for voters or getting anything for the citizens who brought you to power, it's nothing. It's empty. It's a vessel, right? Like what good is that going to do for the average person if you don't teach a thing that wasn't taught?
People in Arkansas just can't stop saying Latinx. Good thing.
I guess so.
Good thing she did this.
Yeah, there's like, how do I want to phrase this? Like, they do go above and beyond to just control the narrative. But I do think that matters to an extent. Like I talked about on this program, like on my show anyways, there's a bill from Oklahoma that they're trying to ban transitioning for anyone under the age of 26. And so if you've already transitioned, then you are forcibly going to have to detransition. And it's just one of the most draconian, vehemently, violently transphobic bills ever. But the question is like how... This probably isn't going to pass, but they're still doing it anyway. But I think that the fact that they even like introduced it, that still does I think that does matter because, it sets the tone, and other states might want to follow on that. So this is something that I saw Aaron Reed, who's a really popular trans activist, talk about. Like, there's this debate about how much should we focus on all of these bills? Because they're getting more ridiculous as time goes on, like the anti-trans bills, for example, not just with this issue, but other issues too, where they're not going to pass. Like House Republicans are passing abortion bans. So like, how much do you focus on this? And I do think that that's a pretty good question. And that's what I wanted to ask Scarlett about too, which is why I wanted to bring you on, because there is like the bills are getting more ridiculous. Every single week there's a new bill. And last year there was like 300 plus anti-trans bills, or over the last 2 years, I should say. And even if some of them don't have a chance of passing, I do still think that it's harmful. But like, to what extent do we dwell on this as opposed to like a different issue?
Yeah, I disagree with the people who say that we shouldn't be worrying about these. And like, actually, the Oklahoma bill, I mean, well, there's more than one bill, but it's probably the riskiest situation in the country right now. I think they're the most likely to pass. They have 4, I think, anti-trans bills. Actually, I shared my screen earlier, but let me.
Oh yeah, sorry, I can bring that up.
What I had earlier is something different, but I can show you
Okay.
this legislative tracker. That's Alejandra Carabello.
Oh, this is helpful.
And this is all the anti-trans bills that are really proposed. She's been updating it like live, and
He's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's really great.
So you can see there's a lot. Just
Jesus
like
Christ.
Wow.
every day. I mean, a lot of this was proposed very recently, like over the past couple days. There's like 8 bills in Virginia. There's like, I think like 10 in Texas. And like, I mean, you can see this up here that counts them: gender affirming care ban 34, trans ban, so on. Yeah, there's an increasing amount, increasing boldness in terms of what they ban, because a lot of these basically ban trans people from existing.
Right.
Drag bans are just like, they're worded in a way to make it so that it's illegal to be a trans person who's observable by anybody. So It just bans you from existing outside of your house in any public space. Like you can be in your house. They can't, they're not trying to ban you inside your home yet, but.
Yeah, what is the language that they used? I forgot who tweeted about this, but it was a specific drag ban that was so vaguely worded that it would end up extending to trans people. Because, I mean, I don't know if they don't know the difference between a drag person or somebody who does drag.
They absolutely know the difference.
Yeah,
they just lump everybody together, and they intentionally write it this way to make it so that it can be plausibly applied to anybody. And, if it gets overturned, or something doesn't hold up in courts, whatever, they're just trying to harass people. So they already got that job done, even if all they do is get them arrested and then have the court dismiss it. But yeah, I mean, there's one in most of these states. So in terms of what the language is, it depends on which state you're talking about, but it's usually very broad and just says stuff like any sort of performance done by a person who is presenting in a gender that's not their assigned gender at birth. And like all these bills define it too. Actually, I could go to Virginia one because I did read through this. Yeah, they don't ban drag shows, but they do like define, what your gender at birth is in the law. And like, that's the other thing is that they're all of these bills require a definition for sex and gender, and they basically all attempt to redefine it in a way that undoes your sort of your legal side of transitioning. All of the birth certificate changes and ID changes are basically undone because the law then starts to say, like, instead of your birth certificate, it says it has to match your birth certificate as it was originally issued when you were born. So if you get it amended, it doesn't matter, basically.
Jesus. Do you know, so is there any oh, sorry, go ahead, David.
I was going to say, is there anything that could have been done while Democrats had the majority to prevent states from doing this, like enshrine these rights into law? Is there any way to stop this? I'm asking because this is going to be an ongoing issue, right? Like they're going to continue trying to do this in various ways until they simply cannot do it because of whatever law is in place that prevents them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to some extent. I mean, like, this is, I think, a culture war issue that they were going to bring up at some point eventually, like inevitably, because this is what the right always does. They have to use a divide and conquer strategy. Anytime they lose the majority, they have to divide the other side, and they've gone through a bunch of things. And like gay marriage or gay rights is acceptable enough to older people that they need to demonize something else. And so like trans people were just the next logical thing, especially since by demonizing trans people, you can also like demonize gay people by association, which is what we see. And yeah, I don't know that there's anything that Democrats could have specifically passed that would have prevented this sort of backlash. I think it would have been better if they were more vocal about pushing back on things. I mean, like Democrats, I haven't heard very many of them, and very many elected officials point out that, there is an ongoing movement to just harass queer people. I don't know. Has Biden ever mentioned libs of TikTok or like what's going on with Twitter? Like this sort of moral panic stuff, it gets created by media. It's not like we don't know what causes this stuff. It's happened before. It's the media that's allowing this to happen. I mean, Twitter is now just a cesspool of hatred.
And it's a
problem. Sorry,
yeah, and it's gotten worse since Elon's taken over. Like the amount of, oh my God, I had Don Jr. recommended to my Twitter timeline like several times this week. I'm like, all right, I got to mute this guy. This is ridiculous. Like, what's going on? And I never get recommended to anyone on the left. Like it's gotten
never.
And now Ken Klippenstein's getting like ghosted on Twitter.
Search banned.
Yeah, search banned. This is an ongoing.
Yeah, I'm also getting I'm unfollowing. My account is unfollowing other leftist accounts, and I see nothing but right wingers on my feed. Matt Walsh, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all the time. And then certain leftists that I follow, I don't see. Like I was unfollowed by a Good Politic guy, And I'm sure it was a glitch because I followed him, and then like an hour later, it unfollowed him again. So something fucked up is happening. But like when it comes to the algorithm, it's certainly pushing more right-wing content. So yeah, Twitter has gotten worse. One thing that I really wanted to ask Scarlett was, for me, I'm always careful about like my language when I talk about trans issues, and I don't want to be too hyperbolic because I don't want to make people or give people the sense that like, oh, he's trying to embellish and be hysterical. But like, when do we start using the genocide word with the GOP? Because like that's where we're at, where it feels like they literally want a genocide against trans people. I mean, these bills are erasing them from existence legally. There's eliminationist language spoken just plainly on right-wing television. Like, do you think it's too hyperbolic to say genocide?
No, I've been telling my family that we have a movement to genocide trans people in this country for maybe a year now. I mean, like, it is genocidal, and some of the things that I didn't mention was these gender-affirming care bans. A lot of them in that document are for minors, but a lot of them seek to expand the definition of minor because they want to ban it for everyone. So some of them, and one of them in Virginia, bans care up to the age of 21. There's another bill somewhere else in the country, I forget where, that goes all the way up to age 25. And I've seen people online arguing that your brain is not even fully developed till you're 30. So that's when you're an adult. And so they just want to really ban it for everyone. And they know that, like, they pretending you don't know what you're doing is a really common and powerful tool. And like they know that by banning this sort of healthcare, they're going to not only just cause suicides to increase, but they are literally killing people, because there are people who need hormones. Once you've had certain surgeries, you need hormones to stay alive. And by making it so that they're not going to have that, means that you're directly impacting their health. And if it goes on long enough, they will die from it. Like,
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. If you have your testicles removed, then you need to have estrogen.
Right. Yeah, and I'm to the point where before I used, and I talked about this on the show before too, like I would try to lay out all the facts, give them the studies, like, okay, for when it comes to trans youth, gender affirming care decreases suicide by X amount. But it's evident now they literally don't care. Like they know that at this point, like they know, and the goal is to eliminate them. So of course, if they see that like trans kids are going to kill themselves, I think that they want that literally. And that might seem like overly cynical, but that's genuinely what I believe at this point.
I mean, that is what it is. Like that's just a reality. I say it's a mistake all the time to approach GOP nonsense and their propaganda campaigns and things like this as though it's legitimate or it's culture wars or any of this nonsense. At the end of the day, the way power is created and maintained is by subjugating other. You know what I mean? There has to be somebody to subjugate. And the way you do that is by manufacturing consent in society. And obviously, we've seen larger shifts in social consciousness that make it harder to attack certain groups, right? Like we're more in the room. If you do certain things you say certain things to Black people, there's likely somebody there. You do certain things to women, there's likely somebody there. You say certain things about what is your standard person they think of as a gay person, there's somebody there. But if there's a trans person, very often they're not present. There isn't a seat at the table, so it's easier to get people to get on board with ostracizing something that you're convincing them is a unicorn or is not there. So it allows them to say, okay, all this bigotry that you weren't receiving so popularly, all the other things we usually rally around, right? The country's more pro-choice than ever before. The country's more pro-gay marriage. The country's more pro-gay relationships. So like Scarlett said, yeah, it's easier. It's an easier target, and that's all it's about. And they know something I think that's important to remember, and all of these things have combined, is they know that what they're saying is misinformation. They know it's incorrect. They know what they're peddling. That's factual. Whenever Tucker Carlson and any of these things get taken to court, the first thing they do is go, "What? Hey, reasonable minds at the table. We all fucking know that we're not being dead ass. That's for those fucking idiots out there. They have an obvious agenda, and that's why when they see, okay, people are finding new channels, new ways, Twitter, social media, these independent shows, new ways to get new information out there, to challenge these things, to shift social consciousness. They say, let's find a way to prevent that, because they know that if the information is actually there, more people hear it. Let's actually just cut off those channels altogether. That's why you see a concerted effort to get books out of there. They coax it as, oh, critical race theory and all this. Really, no. Let's get all that shit out of there. Everything that we think is contributing to opening people's eyes. You heard them just the other day when they defined what they see woke is. That's what they see it is. They see it as, okay, people are being informed about the things, people are receiving the truth, and that is not going to help us justify, get this consent for the bigotry that we need to be able to implement on somebody in order to maintain our power. So they say, you know what, let's do it on who they don't know as much about yet. We've had, the LGBT movement, especially as far as just gay, lesbians, bisexual, has grown exponentially in terms of what is our regular public social consciousness awareness. That's been happening. So they're like, okay, what do they know less about? What is much easier to stigmatize? What haven't they gotten the info out there about yet? Trans people, and shut that shit down. Shut all the info out, sub the books, get the laws, do it before they know anything about it, because that allows us to continue doing what we've been doing. It's just a concerted campaign to continue the same bigotry they've been doing since Jump Street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's easy to as Scarlett was saying, like they went from gay to trans just because that's logical, and it's easy because you just have to copy and paste. Like literally the same things that they argued against gay people, they're now arguing against trans people, and the parallels are so evident. Like there's even like there was an ex-gay movement. Now there's detransitioners, and the detransitioner proportions are very small. And a lot of them who do detransition, they do so because of like social stigma, but like the right will latch onto those people in the same way that the ex-gays were brought on to delegitimize queer people and whatnot.
Also, by the way, like those detransitioners, just like the ex-gays, not trans anymore. Like
Right. And one of them, I'm blanking on their name, was like the darling of the detransition movement, but came out as trans once again. I did a video on them.
What motivates that? Like, I don't.
There's a
online. They got radicalized online. But sorry, go ahead.
Like people get, sort of pushed out of the queer community, and then they seek like another community, and there's a group of bigots looking to take that opportunity. Basically, is what it comes down to. And I mean, a lot of these people are sad and depressed and maybe even have mental issues, and like they're being given an opportunity to be famous and make money and have a bunch of friends supporting them. Like, I don't know, it's a good deal if you feel like a total loser.
Yeah. It pays to throw your own community under the bus too. I mean, look at Dave Rubin, look at Blair White. The shit that they say is completely ridiculous. Like I have no doubt in my mind that they don't believe the things that they say. Like even Blair White, she made some tweet about how something about they think that 5-year-olds can change their gender. When she was on Joe Rogan, and what did she say when he asked her? She's like, oh, well, around 5, that's when I realized that I was a girl. It's like, so they're literally lying on purpose just for a check. It's the most disgusting thing ever, because I could never imagine like throwing my own community under a bus just for a check. It's like the most egregious thing ever. Like I almost not respect, but like appreciate the people who just hate us because they fucking hate us, not the ones who are doing it for a check, because at least that's authentic, right? Like it's so craven.
It's infuriating. It's like the most pathetic thing in the world. I have no respect for any detransitioners on that cloud game. Grift game.
When did that Rogan thing happen? I want to check that one out. That's pretty crazy.
You can find it pretty easy.
That's crazy. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was like a year ago or so, I think.
Yeah. I might have even done a video about this because it was just such a huge like hypocrisy moment where it's like, oh my God, did you not remember saying this? Because like for me, like I always like kind of have the same story. I don't change my story when I talk about coming out. I came out at 22, realized I was different when I was like 5 years old. So it's not like if she talked about her experience, how do you not remember that you mentioned that part? Because it's just.
Yet they continue on grifting somehow. They stay relevant even though they've been exposed for being full of shit. Like that's what I'm like, Mike. If you were caught in some kind of like you got your story wrong somehow along the line, some Jimmy Dore fans would have found it and like exposed you. Be like, look at you lie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
but like yeah, and like career over. Meanwhile, you have these high profile individuals in conservative media just exposed again and again and again, and they maintain and they get more popular. The whole thing is wild to me that they're able to maintain their audience.
Yeah. And then every now and then you'll get like a Dave Rubin who just gets devoured by the leopards, you know? Like sometimes I do genuinely feel bad for him, but wow, it is vicious. It's like, yeah, we had a couple children with the surrogate, and it's like, well, you're burning in hell now. Yeah, there is no forgiveness for you. In the very circle you've carved out for yourself, everyone hates you now. And I was just like, this is just intense. Wow.
Yet he is still claiming that the left are the ones that are intolerant. Meanwhile, like his whole audience is like turned on him. Like it's so crazy.
Yeah. That was a debacle that it made me feel bad to get so much enjoyment out of that. But oh my god, I was. Did
you watch him go on the Glenn Beck show where he had to do his penance as the one good gay, where he was just like, Glenn Beck actually compared being gay to alcoholism. He's like, I'm an alcoholic, you're homosexual and a sodomite. I was like, oh my god, why are you not screaming at this man or spitting on him through the screen? Like, what is going on? How can you sit back?
You could literally, that moment, you could see it in Dave Rubin's eyes. The soul went out, like the flame extinguished right there, because like every single gay person probably has that moment where they come out when they're young and they're told by their auntie or parent it's a phase, and well, we all have flaws, I'm an alcoholic. We've all heard that shit. So to him to have to hear that in his 40s, it's got to be soul crushing. But he fucked around a little bit. He memed a little bit too close to the sun. He didn't remember that the extent to which the right allows you to exist in that space as an out gay man, and the same is true for trans women as well, is you cannot remind them that you're actually gay. Like, they don't want to see you with your husband. They don't want to remember that you have families.
Ben Shapiro will not cook the birthday cake. Or, no, he won't even give him the wedding cake. The wedding cake, yeah. Ben Shapiro refuses to... Ben Shapiro, that one's even worse than Glenn Beck. He was straight up like, Dave's like, would you have me and my husband over for barbecue? He's like, well, if I had a barbecue, would you come over to my house? And he's like, it's not going to be gay. It's not going to be really gay. And he's like, well, how gay? How gay? I'm like, that's so savage.
Yeah.
That's your friend. That's your colleague. Yeah.
Well, it's like you are there specifically, Dave Rubin, so you can tell them that their homophobic beliefs and policies are not homophobic. That's your only role. The second you deviate out of that line, they slap you back down. And he keeps trying to make it seem as if, oh no, the left's the ones, they're the least tolerant, and he wants us to think that he'll be accepted by the right. But these evangelicals are never going to accept you. They are literally using you. I mean, Dennis Prager said to Dave Rubin's face, he's so useful. I mean, take a fucking hint. So that's why, to me, like, I enjoyed that whole drama when he got just bashed by his own fans, because it's like, I never thought leopards would eat my face. I love it so much.
It just makes me think at that time, I don't know if you've seen it, where Blair White was like on some conservative panel show. And I don't remember who it was.
Was it with John Doyle and then a really scary, like, white blonde kind of like, Karen, but with like fire in her eyes, because she was like the conservative who was straight up like, you should not exist. I don't want to be around you. Yeah, that was
holy shit.
That was hard to watch.
Like, if you really want to help the conservative movement, or if you want, I can't remember how she phrased, but something like, if you really want to help, then you should start going by a male name, grow out your mustache, and cut your hair. Just told her to detransition.
Did she defend herself?
It was basically. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. She's kind of just shocked, but.
Wow. See, Blair White, that's kind of karma, honestly. And I don't feel bad for her, because she was on a Vice panel, I think it was, and she was talking about how non-binary people are delegitimizing the trans movement because people don't get it. And I'm paraphrasing. So she basically said that same thing to a non-binary person on the panel, like not in that exact way, but that was the same sentiment. So I love that somebody told her that, just because like it's karma. You said the same thing to non-binary people. And in the same way that you try to delegitimize their identities, conservatives who you claim to be friends with are trying to delegitimize you. This is why, like, I've got no love for these grifters. And anytime it blows up in their face, I feel like morally it's imperative that I celebrate that. I don't feel bad at all.
You know what's wild is that Blair White used to have purple hair and be kind of like non-binary looking. And
I didn't know this.
I think she even used to used the term non-binary maybe, and then she had like a conservative turn, and you know her style.
Interesting.
Money will do a lot to people, I think.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah, it's
sad.
like I said, with getting alienated too, and I think that's a huge part of it. I don't know if that happened to her, but when you look at Buck Angel, like Buck, when I first got on Twitter, I was following Buck Angel because I only knew him as a porn star, and like for the first year, it was like, you know, he was whatever. Like he didn't say anything. He didn't really post that much. He didn't seem to have that many terrible views. That at least I didn't see them. And then like, you know, the show with ContraPoints went down, and like he started getting all this negative attention, and he got like way worse. And now he's like, on his bio, it says something like a female who lives as a man, and like stopped using like he, him pronouns. Let's like everybody call him a woman or whatever.
He doesn't even use he, him pronouns.
I think they're like voluntary now.
Well, I saw, I didn't really know about Buck Angel until the whole ContraPoints controversy. So that was like my first experience with it. But what stands out in my mind is the way that he was groveling at J.K. Rowling's feet, basically, in a tweet. I don't remember the tweet specifically, but she tweeted some transphobic bullshit, predictably. And both Blair White and Buck Angel were both like yas queening J.K. Rowling. And I can't handle this. Like, it's gonna make my head explode.
Yeah, I had to unfollow and mute that guy. Like, even as a hate follower, I couldn't. Like, it's hard to watch. Yeah, it is. Because it's sad. Like, you know that deep down, they are either doing it to like gain popularity or friendships, or they're distraught. Either way, like, you know something isn't right. Like, they don't feel good about what they're saying. There's no way, because it's so absurd from their perspective. I just don't believe it. Like, I refuse to accept that they believe their own bullshit.
Yeah. As you were saying though, Scar, like, is it possible that they get inundated with this hatred, like this pylon that then makes them dig the hole even deeper? Like, it's something like that, yeah. Like, which makes me question: is there like just a question? Is there something to the idea that if someone, I don't know, like, do we pile on too much? Is the internet too negative in that sense? Like, are you going to do the
Cody Johnson meme? The one where he's like, no, someone was mean to me, so I changed all my beliefs. And
no, not that. I'm obviously not excusing people that are, you know, terrible people. But is there something to the idea that if that weren't there, would these people not have turned to the or go as deep as they have gone? Which is just like, I don't know. I mean, same thing like we discussed Matt Taibbi as well. Like, it was a similar situation where he may have felt a bit of a pylon after some comments from that book came out, and then he became even more right wing. Not to excuse their behavior, just to help explain it, and wonder, like, would they have made that turn if that had not happened?
I think it is a mistake for us to approach these things as though people are operating in sincerity and good faith, and that's not the truth. As frustrating as it is, because it's no different than the Coons of the world, the Ben Carsons, the Herschel Walkers, and blah, 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 who come out and say all this racist, anti-Black stuff and become agents of white supremacy because they think it benefits them. It's the same way, right? Like, Derek Bell, who's the founder of critical race theory, he has a concept he talks about in his book, Faces at the Bottom of the Well, called Rules of Racial Standing. But it's basically the idea that if I, as a Black person, I become, in order to tokenize myself, to ingratiate myself with the white people who I think is the majority or where I can get most benefit, if I say the things that do not benefit my group, so they can say, so they're able to legitimize their white talking points and say, well, they said it. If I do that, will they curry me enough favor so much as to benefit from me? That's what you do, right? It's the whole concept of the coon. And that's no different than we find other words for it, grifter, this, blah, blah, blah. But that's all it is. People that are ultimately deciding, I have something to gain. Like, while it is not advantageous, you know, to the whole, I have something to gain in doing this, and so I'm going to do this at the expense of this community. It's a grift. We see it all the time. And to an earlier point y'all made, it's the reason why there's an accepted, I feel like we just don't acknowledge the elephant in the room, that the right knows that they're insincere. They know it. That's why they're able to get caught in a million different scandals and hypocrisy, and it doesn't matter, because it never fucking mattered. It's all about, you know, pretense, doing what you got to do, further and overall things. but a lot of it is insincere. And I think there's also something to remember in terms of when we look at commentators and pundits and stuff. It's a mistake to take these people as representatives of a movement, and that's what the right intentionally does, right? This person that is here actively speaking against the trans community, even though they're a trans person, and like blowing your fucking mind. This person is not somebody, obviously, is not a person intellectually invested in this movement. They are not an organizer out in the world. You know what I mean? They are one individual fucking person that's choosing a lane and a carve out for themselves to get ahead. And that's all that it really fucking is. You know, that's what it is. It has nothing to do with, oh, we pile on me this. There are all kinds of things and all that to be explored. Yes, the internet is a shitty place. But as somebody, listen, as somebody I spent my every fucking day concerned about the liberation of Black people. And I could tell you, I could find all kind of threads of Black people talking bad about me. I could find threads of everybody talking bad about me. You could find your own camp talking bad about your shit. We can't put up the flyer for the Leftist Mafia without people who follow me talking shit that we not this right. Like every time, right? You get shit talk, but if you are a principled person, if something is what you ultimately care about, those are your principles, those are your beliefs, that shit's not gonna matter. So that ain't got nothing to do with the price of tea in China. At the end of the day, what they're doing is as simple as this. Get in where I fit in. That's all it is. They are trying to get in where they fit in and fuck the rest of everybody else.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tal, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.